welcome to the program. This week, I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend. Senegal finally held its election after a month's delay, and citizens in diaspora were able to cast their votes. The Somali pirates that were captured by the Indian Navy arrived in India, where they will be facing trial. Here's more.
As citizens of Senegal gathered at several polling stations in the country to cast their votes for the next president, citizens in diaspora were also able to cast their votes in Paris, France. Thousands of Senegalese queued outside polling stations in the French capital. Voters could be seen standing in kilometers of queues outside a polling station administered by the consulate in France. Many of them complained about the voting conditions and elections organization.
Here, we voted in extreme conditions, with queues stretching up to 4 kilometers. That's unheard of, unbelievable, never seen before in Senegal. So the organization, frankly, here in France, is a failure.
Nearly 40,000 Senegalese nationals voted in polling stations administered by the consulate after election day was delayed by a month earlier this year. On Saturday, 35 captured Somali pirates arrived in Mumbai to stand trial, days after the Indian Navy recaptured a hijacked bulk carrier and rescued several hostages. The destroyer, INS Kolkata, which led to the rescue operation, docked in India's financial capital early in the morning. The pirates are to be prosecuted for the hijacking of the cargo vessel, the MV Ruin, when they took the crew hostage. Under India's anti-piracy laws, they could face severe penalties, including death sentences, if their actions resulted in fatalities or life imprisonment for piracy alone. The recent terrorist attack at the Russian Crocus City Hall in Moscow has elicited condemnation from some Nigerians in Abuja who expressed solidarity with the Russian people.
Anything terrorism should not be condoned anywhere in the world. It is Africa, Asia, America, anywhere, it should not be condoned. And I believe that those people should be tracked down and brought to justice.
In an official statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja, Nigeria extended heartfelt condolences to the Russian Federation.
To our main stories for today, supporters of Senegal's presidential candidate Bassirou Faye have taken to the streets of the capital, Dakar, in celebration as early results from Sunday's vote showed the opposition contender in the lead. The celebrations come as at least 5 of the 17 candidates in the race issued statements congratulating Mr. Faye on what they called his victory. However, his main rival from the ruling coalition, former Prime Minister Amadou Ba, say the celebrations are premature. The Electoral Commission also is yet to announce the winner of the election. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, is in Dakar, Senegal, and reports that the largely manual election process includes diaspora voting, with hopes that a candidate makes over 50% of the votes. If not, elections will have to be reheld in 2 weeks.
No restriction of foot or vehicle movement in Dakar, Senegal, as the country's over 7.3 million registered voters line up to vote for a new president. Senegal provides for diaspora voting. The total number of registered voters in the country are 7,381,894, and this number includes 336,040 who will be voting from abroad. There are 6,341 polling centers in the country and 367 abroad. 15,633 polling units in the country and 807 polling units abroad. Frontline candidates in these highly contested elections in Senegal are Bassirou Diomaye Faye, ex-PASTEF party, and considered the main opposition. Amadou Ba, ruling Benno Bokk Yakaar coalition. Idrissa Seck, who's the former prime minister and came second during the 2019 polls. And Khalifa Abubakar Sall, former mayor of Dakar. There's only one female candidate in the race, and her name is Anta Babakar Ngom. The ECOWAS election monitoring team in Senegal is made up of 1,400 members, led by Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Nigeria's former Minister of External Affairs and former Chief of Staff to former President Muhammadu Buhari.
Well, so far very peaceful and orderly. About 540 in each of the polling area, and all the materials are there. Each of them have the president, like the chairman of the process. The lists are there. Each party representative also checks the list that they have with the official list, and they correspond. And so far, so good.
Polling is peaceful across polling units visited in Pikine, at Jawarath and Jene, and Bert Mubert.
We had about 4 people.
After a quick review at the ECOWAS Situation Room, the team visits other situation rooms across the country, receiving assurances of a well-coordinated exercise with minor irregularities. A quick visit is made to one of the candidates in the polls, Mr. Khalifa Sall. And after a meeting, the team wraps up its roving and waits for Senegal's Constitutional Committee to announce the final results.
The official results as they are read out to us in hopefully the next few hours. From Dakar, Senegal, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Kayla joins us now on the program for more updates today. Hello, Kayla. Thank you. How did the elections turn out to be yesterday?
Hello, Lyle. It's a very windy city, and everyone came out in the cold. It's cold and windy, but a lot of people dared the weather and they came out and they voted yesterday. One of the things we noticed was that the election started on time. They were built to start at 8 a.m. and then at about 6. And by 8 a.m., we already saw people in polling booths. We saw the election materials already. Here the elections are being handled by the Ministry of Interior, our equivalent of the Ministry of Interior. So we saw all of the organization. It has been described by a lot of the observers that we met yesterday, not just the ECOWAS observers. We also met local observers, the United Nations. All of these people describe the elections as free, as fair, as well coordinated. Remember, this is an election that many people didn't think was going to happen because of the build-up to the election. There was a lot that happened, cancellations and postponements. And Senegal has been described by many as one of the strongest democracies in Africa, being one of the only countries that has never experienced a coup d'etat. So it's a democracy that a lot of people have respected over the years. But that respect, like I said yesterday, came under a lot of scrutiny recently as a result of the fact that many people still believe that President Macky Sall was trying to extend his time in office. So we saw cancellations, postponements till December. We're very happy that the elections happened as planned yesterday. Lots of young people very interested in this election, and the Constitution Council of the country will be the only ones who can give us the actual results of the election. And remember, they need a 50% lead to be able to win, which is interesting, and we're wondering how that's going to work, considering the fact
for
that
the next question, we can use the celebrations visual
for the office of president. So we're watching to see things are moving in one way or the other. Some people are saying the celebrations are premature. Other people are very excited about what they think is a lead in one particular candidate's direction. So we're watching to see how it all unfolds. And like I said, 50% of the votes, and if no one is able to get over 50% of the votes here in Senegal, then they might have to do elections again. But everyone is hoping that that doesn't happen. We're watching to see how it all unfolds, Lyle.
Indeed, Kayla, and we know, it's the Constitutional Council, just like you've mentioned, that will announce the winner of the election. But we've seen supporters of the presidential candidate, and that's the opposition, Bassirou Faye. We've seen supporters, celebrating in the streets that their candidate is in the early lead. What's the mood in the country now?
Well, the mood in the city, it started from last night. There's been a lot of celebration this country has a very massive young people population. And, the celebrations, we actually started seeing people celebrating since yesterday night. And we're hearing a lot of people celebrating as well this morning. This part of Dakar is pretty calm, but, last night was a ruckus. People were riding on motorcycles and bikes, happy that their preferred candidate had won the elections in their minds. But like I said earlier, we can't say that. And of course, we've heard the opposition also say that, look, celebrations are premature. Remember, this election is basically between the status quo and the opposition, the newcomers. And it does feel like, for many people, many young people at least that we've seen and spoken to, at least here in Dakar, that they're ready for something different from the status quo. Many people are not happy with the way President Macky Sall ruled. And so anyone who is considered his successor, of course, will be frowned at by many people who are in support of the opposition to that. But we do have quite a number of people in Senegal who are strong supporters of the president, strong supporters, of the status quo, and want, things to continue as they are. So it's one of those elections where, one is being pitched against the other, even though there are 19 candidates, but it does look like right now that it's a two-person race, so to speak. So we're watching to see how that works out. But, the mood in the city, very tense. Many people rejoicing. Local media has started reporting a particular candidate who's already in the lead in their view, and many people are saying, and then the opposing candidate is saying, no, the celebrations are premature, so everyone needs to calm down. But the Constitution Council will be the ones to give us the actual outcome of the election. But a lot of excitement in the air, a lot of anticipation. The turnout yesterday was indicative, especially the turnout by young people, was indicative of the mood of the country going into these elections. Remember, this is 60 people, I think, I hope I'm getting that right. About 60 people have died in the run-up to these elections. So many people are very angsty, very excited at the same time. We're hopeful that the election and the process comes out really smooth and smooth sailing, rather. Many people have been worried about, corrupt practices and things that are happening. And they're having assurances from different areas that that's not going to happen. And from what we saw during the elections yesterday, smooth sailing, even according to all of the observers. So we're watching to see, how it all unfolds. But for now, the mood in Dakar, Senegal, at least where I am, is very peaceful. People are excited, like I said, since yesterday night, and we're waiting to see how those results come out.
All right, then, Kayla Megoa, our correspondent, thank you so much, even as we are waiting for the announcement of the winner of the election in Senegal. We'll move over to Chad. The Constitutional Council has approved 10 candidates for its upcoming presidential election, and this includes the country's interim president, General Mohamed Idris Deby. Now, the elections are scheduled to hold on the 6th of May. Mr. Deby initially promised an 18-month transition to democratic rule after he seized power in 2021, and that was following the death of his father. But he later postponed the elections until this year, triggering protests that were violently suppressed by security forces. Now, the candidates list also includes Sosé Masra, and that's the opposition leader who was appointed Prime Minister of the transitional government in January. 10 other candidates have been barred from contesting due to what the authorities have called irregularities in their applications, and they include Nassou Ibrahim Negai and Rekis Amat Saleh, both of them outspoken critics of the government. Algeria is sending 150 tons of humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza amid warnings of an imminent famine there. The items include food supplies and baby formula. The Defense Ministry says this aid reflects Algeria's commitment to unconditional and unlimited solidarity with the Palestinian people. A military aircraft is transporting the aid from the Bouafarik military airport near the capital Algiers to Egypt's El Arish airport, which is located close to the Gaza Strip. According to the UN, an estimated half of Gaza's population is starving following months of conflict with Israel. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and the Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry, discussing the political and humanitarian role Egypt plays in the Gaza conflict. This was on the second day of his annual Ramadan solidarity trip. Mr. Guterres also highlighted the role of all Arish airports and the Rafah crossing as essential arteries for life-saving aid to the Palestinian people. Mr. Guterres once again called for a humanitarian ceasefire and the release of all hostages, even as the Security Council is expected to vote on another Gaza resolution.
I want to recognize the vital political and humanitarian role of Egypt. Al Arish Airport and the Rafah crossing are essential arteries for life-saving aid into Gaza. But those arteries are clogged. On one side of the border there are blocked humanitarian trucks as far as the eye can see. On the other, we have a real-time humanitarian catastrophe stretching even further. Looking at Gaza, it almost appears that the four horsemen of war, famine, conquest and death are galloping across it. And that is why the time for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire is now. And in the Ramadan spirit of compassion, I also urge the immediate and unconditional release of hostages.
The Pan-African Parliament, PAP, serving as the legislative branch of the African Union, has gathered for an extraordinary summit at its headquarters in Midrand, South Africa. Now, a key item on the agenda for this session is the election to fill vacant positions in the PAP Bureau, notably positions such as the President, First Vice President, and Fourth Vice President of the Bureau, which are currently vacant. Meanwhile, the Nigerian representatives at the PAP underscored the vital role of the Pan-African Parliament in addressing challenges confronting the African continent. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, reports.
Here at the 6th Pan-African Parliament's extraordinary session, representatives from across the continent are gathered to discuss issues confronting the continent. I had the opportunity to speak with the Nigerian representatives who shared their views on some of the pressing issues. Well, some say that Africa should use the Pan-African Parliament as a tool for structural transformation.
The Pan-African Parliament is more of an advisory and a consultative, but let us bring about legislations that will be binding based on some of the protocols that have been endorsed in the past, so that some of these issues can now have proper solution, so that it will no longer be a talk show for countries to come down here and we talk. Some of these things are not implemented.
I want a peaceful Africa. I want an economic, empowered, emancipated Africa. I want a democratic Africa. I believe the Pan-African Parliament has a role to play in ensuring these things come to pass. Currently, the Pan-African Parliament does not have constitutional rights to implement, but moves are being made.
Some emphasize the importance of good governance initiatives to uplift African nations.
If you sift through the problems and challenges confronting Africa, you see that these are the clear problems. So for us to be able to address the issue, the economic problems across Africa, there's need for high level of transparency, for accountability, for good governance. If we get these things right, Africa has gotten it right. And then the rest of the world is looking up to Africa, and Africans are looking up to Nigeria.
Professor Lillian Orobu advocates for more women participation in the parliament.
Women have been doing extremely well all over the world, and particularly in African countries. We have seen women excel in the various fields of specialization, fields of profession, and we will be here to advocate for more inclusiveness, more participation.
While it's true that some African leaders may be prioritizing crucial issues, the level of commitment to driving progress and prosperity among all African leaders remains uncertain. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
Chinese investment in the Nigerian economy is visible in various infrastructure projects across the country. Now, Chinese companies have been partners to modern changes in Nigeria for decades, and strengthening that relationship is what the Lagos Forum 2024 hopes to achieve. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, reports.
The Forum on China is the first of its kind in Nigeria, and is one China hopes will continue as relations with Nigeria progresses. It is attended by members of the diplomatic corps, the Chinese delegation, led by the Chinese Consul General, international relations scholars, and the media. Private Chinese companies supervising the execution of different infrastructure projects in the country give situation reports on projects past and present, showing Chinese goodwill to Nigeria. The Consul General Yan Yujin says both countries are one step closer to a better world.
China stands ready to strengthen multilateral coordination with African countries and the AU to safeguard the common interests of developing countries. China and Nigeria are strategic partners, and the engagement between the two countries is a vivid example of the promotion of equal and orderly multipolarity of the world.
Director General of the Nigeria Institute of International Affairs, Professor Hossam Sagi, while commending areas of cooperation, said it's time Chinese services are domesticated in Nigeria.
And China must help Nigeria to become a manufacturing economy, a productive economy. Because one of the cardinal points about Chinese emergence as a big power was transfer of technology as a platform, for all that China had in terms of its transformation. And so China must transfer technology to Nigeria. China must domesticate technology in Nigeria, and China must help, in that regard.
His words are reiterated by the Acting Director of Research and Studies at the NIIA, Dr. Ifem Ubi, who says re-strategizing foreign policy with China will build stronger cooperation and fast-track Nigeria's economic development.
There are some newer theories that people don't even talk about, which has also undermined, international or interstate relations in the international system. Theories like the constructivist theories. You construct what you want to see, and the propaganda you see that is coming is because the West or other countries or whoever feels, the people I call xenophobes, people I call xenoskeptics, will construct a vision of the kind of China you want to see, a vision of the kind of Africa they want to see, a vision of the kind of relationship between China, Africa, and all that. And so, although these are laudable initiatives, like I said, ambitious ones too, without being pessimistic, our community of shared future can only be achieved through sincerity and commitment.
A book launch and some more discussions on varying aspects of relations, and the program comes to an end, with the hope that leaders will work towards real change for economic development. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.